Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ecom Pulse podcast. I'm Eitan Kotter, your host, and I have a very special guest today, Jeremy Miller, Senior Director of Commerce Platform at Moda Operandi. Welcome, Jeremy. How are you?
Doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, Jeremy. Your career is really, very, very exciting and comprehensive. You've done so much in 25 years in running and operating e-commerce businesses. And probably one of the key highlights and the crazy and data that was highlighted here is like you actually built e-commerce platform that generated $3.6 billion in revenues. That's with the B, right?
That's with the B.
Wow,
Absolutely. Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
that's really amazing,
Over the
amazing.
years.
So probably you work with like Fortune 10 companies, I guess,
Yeah,
to hit this.
Fortune 10, Fortune 100, and
Wow.
then all kinds of larger scale sized companies as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Right. It's really amazing. So, Jeremy, we would love to learn more about you. So, please share with us about your professional background, your experience, and you can start, whenever you want. Just take it from there and just share with us. All things
Sure,
that you've been
sure.
through.
Yeah, yeah. I've been in the business, like you said, for 25, 26 years. So maybe I'm always the old guy in the room now, the dinosaur.
Yeah,
But yes, got my career start in 1998, 99. So really, that was the beginning of e-commerce, right? It was coming right
really
off
the beginning. Yeah,
dial-up. Alta Vista was around.
around. Yeah.
if anybody remembers what Alta Vista is.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so I got my start actually in the world of B2B e-commerce, and was there for quite some time. But I got a great start as a developer. I was also an information architect, which really gave me an excellent foundation and beginning of understanding what customers needed, and going through requirements and being able to do wireframes and do all those sorts of things. Actually
Yep.
became a graphic artist as well, so you could do the UI UX part of things. And then over my career, that I've actually kind of held on to that. It's been a passion of mine and a love. So I think I brought the UX portion of my background to every job I've had over my career. But yeah, I moved to Augusta, Georgia, where I am today. Actually, strangely enough, I've lived in the same place for quite some time. I always assumed I would go somewhere else, but I'm still here. But yeah, I work for a media company. I started an e-commerce business for the media company back in the early 2000s. Built websites for them. Worked for a manufacturer for a while, ground up, owned quite a large, hundreds of millions of P&L there,
Yep.
which was a really awesome opportunity to actually own part of the business as well as run the e-commerce side of the systems as well. I was there for a long time, over a decade, and really got a great foundation there in growing my career and just understanding how to grow a business, because we really started at $0 and then worked our way up to hundreds of millions. So that was a really interesting ride to go from nothing to quite something.
Yeah.
And then
Amazing.
also build the systems from the ground up as well. Starting with what are we doing? Why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Be able to understand the customers, put systems in place, and then really scale it over the years. Yeah, and since then I've enjoyed doing some consulting for a number of years. Again, growing skill sets in that direction as well, understanding what a wide range of companies would need. Work for, like I said, Fortune 10, 1500 at Newell Brands, which is basically half a Target, I think, at this point. And then also over at Coty as well. So, a French company that owns a large number of fragrances and skincare. So
Skincare. Yeah.
yeah, now at Moda Operandi. But yeah, I feel like I've touched and worn all the hats across the board when it comes to e-commerce systems.
Yes. Yes. So I know you're also definitely very technical and has a lot of operational experience, but you manage a full P&L, right? And
That's right.
So I would love in this episode, right, to let's build it like step by step, right?
Sure.
Assuming we're going to launch a product, and let's start with the foundation of the staffing, the talent acquisition, right? I know you've managed development teams like in international locations as well. So your perspective is very important. So on this, basic foundation of talent, what is important, for you when you start launching products, and how do
Sure.
you usually build your teams?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, kind of going back in time, right? And, I started my career in 99 and then on up, companies really functioned differently 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so initially, as e-commerce, came about, the e-commerce teams reflected how business used to be run. And
Yeah.
so, the teams would be structured, around finance, around operations, around marketing, and then there was a little bit of a push pull, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, the systems were still new and they were still kind of being formulated. But now we have these platforms in place where you've got the Shopify's and the Magentos and big commerces, not to mention some of the larger platforms as well. But um, they are constructed in a very specific way and they run a very specific way. So if you orient your teams in the same fashion as the platforms are constructed, then there's a lot more efficiencies across the board. So the three or the six big ones is data, content, commerce, CRM, architecture, and operations. And so if you align
Mm-hmm.
your teams under those big six, then it allows you for your teams to work the same way the platform works. And so now you're vertically aligned, right, with the
Yeah.
functionality in the teams. So of course there's teams underneath each one of those sections. You can have managers and people that sometimes there's developers, sometimes there's content specialists, data specialists, across the board. But again, though, if you align your teams with the platform instead of with the company, then from a technology perspective, you'll have a lot of synchronicities across the board. Now, I will say, from a product perspective, you have to have the ability to wear both hats, right? On the business side and the technical side.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to set up your technical teams in the way I just described, but then obviously the business isn't going to conform itself to how the platform works typically, because they want to continue to work in more of a traditional sense.
Yeah.
So having product and project managers in place that are these nice hybrid people that are in between, can speak both languages, understand what the technology teams need, and then translate that back to the business, what the business needs, translate that back to the technology team. So you're in the middle. Speaks really nicely, but yeah, having the teams broken up into these six areas, I have found is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And how do you, in terms of the staffing, still on this topic, how do you align, engineering or operational staff with, business goals? Okay, so obviously
Sure.
sometimes, different people wearing different hats, marketing, go to market, and obviously, technical and operational team that needs to support that. How do you see this happening,
Sure.
evolving?
No, great question. Again, it used to be, waterfall, sort of methodologies, and
Yeah.
very clunky, if you will.
Yeah.
But now, though, I definitely have adopted the agile approach. I love using sprints and very process oriented procedures when you kind of go forward.
Yep.
It keeps the machine well oiled.
Sure.
So ensuring, again, kind of putting your platform hat on, right? So there's a couple of areas, or even three, right? So you have platform capabilities, inherent, native, comes with the platform. Then there are applications that you can install, right? And so you go out and find an application, you install it. Okay, now you have probably very close to the functionality that's requested or needed.
Yes.
And then there's custom as well. And so you have these three different areas. Native typically just means configuration.
Mm-hmm.
apps typically just mean some installation and some configuration, sometimes some development, but that's not quite as common.
Sure.
And then you have the custom areas as well, which that's a sort of green space, right? You can sky's the limit. You can get into whatever you want to get into there.
Yes.
But as if you put your developer hat on, though, you definitely need to really be remembering that these are the three different areas. So as the business comes up with ideas or needs or improvements, and then they move those into requests with the product team. The product team formulates them into something that's logical.
Mm-hmm.
Have discussions with the engineering teams. Those engineering teams then need to remember that there's these three different areas, right? You can't just go to number three. Well, I'm just going to customize everything, because that's a terrible way to go. You should leverage the platform's capabilities as often as possible. So if you can find something that's a native app, native configuration, use it. If there's an app for that, definitely use it. As long as it, from a financial standpoint, makes sense. And then only as a last resort to go to, a custom or coding, engineering, that type of thing. So that's a big jump from the way that things used to be, right?
Sure.
It used to be number three was the only one, right? There was very little, native platform capabilities. It was usually very bare bones. And then, the applications that even 4 or 5 years ago, there were not that many applications out there for Shopify or Magento or any of the others.
Mm-hmm.
It was very light, very slim pickings, if you will. And so, now though, there's a multitude, and oftentimes even from the Shopify makes their own, Magento makes their own. So, you can find some that are even built specifically by the provider themselves. So, finding those is always preferred, because integration is already built. The ability to roll with the future versions coming up, any changes to the platform is on the application developer, right? So, there is a trade-off in ownership there. So from a development, go back to your original question, the evolution of what developers are responsible for and their mindset has really changed over the last 4 or 5 years. And a lot of times it's configuration, sometimes it's not, but most of the time it is. It's just configuration or apps instead of this custom coding.
Yes. And obviously job descriptions are changing rapidly, right? I mean,
yes,
definitely with the AI now, I mean, like prompt engineering is like a foundation or basic requirements for anyone. So if you want to, as a P&L owner, and if you would have, hire now, let's say, a director of e-commerce for your team, what would be the ideal candidate, right, looking forward for 2024 and next year?
Sure. I think the ideal candidate would probably be a bit different than it was, even 5 or 6 years ago, mostly because of the changes in the platform and the platform's capabilities. Prior platform that you would purchase, I'll just pick one like an IBM WebSphere, right?
Yeah.
It was a big player in the late aughts. 2010 and before, it gave you just basic functionality. And so that e-commerce manager or director would really have to have a lot of technical knowledge.
Sure.
In today's world, they need to be a bit more of a hybrid person. So they need to have a much more of a business, head on them, right?
Yeah.
And really to be able to understand what the business needs. Not to say that prior that wasn't important, but now it's even more so.
Even more interesting. Yeah.
Right. Also have the ability to understand how to do the configurations and to dive in. So it's not technical so much. It's less technical, still technical a little bit. Having a strong architect next to that person, I think, is critical and key. But the e-commerce director or manager today, if I was hiring, I would be looking for someone that has good business acumen, has the ability to understand how systems work together, and have a little bit more of a marketing, spin to their portfolio.
Interesting. So require more and more diverse, let's say, experiences and knowledge beyond the specific role, right? I mean, know how to share knowledge and work as a team with other stakeholders, right, in the company.
That's right.
So, Jeremy, maybe last question on this topic. I know you also manage international development teams, right, in
That's right.
other territories. So, for anyone who is listening and considering, outsourcing or hiring a team outside of the U.S., what are your, main, insights, pain points or opportunities, with international teams?
Sure. Opportunities, there's a lot of them. There are very smart people around the world that can do various things
Hmm.
that you need, right? So I think it's important to remember that there are quality teams all over the world, and in terms of always having someone on, right? 24/7.
Yeah.
Having teams in other parts of the world as well, especially for large enterprises, can be quite beneficial. I think
Hmm.
at one point I was managing development teams in India, Sweden, Germany, and the U.S.
Wow.
Uh,
For the same project.
well, it wasn't the same project, but it was all
Okay.
at the same time, separate
Same
projects.
time. Wow.
Uh, but that capability though allows you to have people working all the time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty nice. So yeah, there's a lot of really nice things about having people always being able to be available,
To
uh,
execute. Yeah.
and always eyes wide open on business at hand. Challenges certainly are sort of the usual suspects. It's they're not in the same place, so you can't be face to face.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's cultural differences between expectations or even communication. I found that to be important to be aware of. So I think it's important at in the beginning to be in person, right?
Yeah.
If you can visit, if you can go to India, if you can go to wherever, to the UK, wherever your team is, be present, understand, who these people are, what motivates them, and to set clear expectations. Being in person 1 or 2 times a year, it's quite helpful.
Yeah. Important.
But yeah, I mean, communication though can be I think one of the hardest things. And that seems sort of maybe odd, but
Hmm.
a no or a yes in certain places, and a no or a yes in other places. So as you're managing,
Yeah.
as you're being a project manager or product manager
Yeah.
in other parts of the world, just being super clear is key. But yeah, I think certainly the benefits greatly outweigh any of the challenges.
Yes. Yes. And the primary triggers to go international is probably cost, right? Or also, time frame, reduce project time frames, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
definitely cost benefits
Sure.
as well. Um, but that surely isn't the main motivator, though, because the skill sets need to be there. I've definitely
For sure.
I've been in situations where cost was the main consideration, uh, but it was exponential in time. So we actually ended up paying more because we didn't necessarily look at the skill set of the team
Yeah.
as closely as maybe we should have, and we're mostly concentrating on cost. So you definitely have to weigh out. I mean, again, skill sets, either if you're in the U.S., the U.K., Sweden or India or anywhere
Hmm.
else, people are people. Some people are great at things, and some people are not.
Yeah.
But everyone says that they're great, so you definitely you have to
Yes.
look closely. But yeah, definitely
Sure.
there's cost benefits there for sure.
Great. So I think once we have, assuming we have the talent in place, we have the most amazing staff and the key directors and leaders in each one of in the responsibilities. So let's take it to the next step, right? Let's talk about product strategy, product management, right? How do you see this planning that needs to be developed in order to come up with the best strategy for the product?
Sure, absolutely. Um, I like to think about product as like an ecosphere, or maybe even like a garden, right? Where
Yes.
things
Hmm.
are planted next to each other. They have to like each other. They also
Hmm.
have to benefit each other as well. And so ensuring that you understand your overall system in its entirety, how it's working together, and ensuring that they are tailored to be working together as best you possibly
Hmm.
can, I think is important. You don't get that luxury all the time, right? You can't always just say, "Oh, I'm going to go out and build a brand new system with all new pieces." Uh, However, with some of these newer platforms, it's a little bit easier because a lot of the pieces are made to go together.
Hmm.
So it's important though to make sure that you're not selecting things just because oh I like it, so I'm gonna ram it in, right? I'm gonna
Yeah.
use
Hmm.
a drill and a hammer, and I'm gonna make sure that they,
Yeah.
they like each other. Sometimes it's better to go out and look at the different areas, or different services, different capabilities, products out there to make sure that they go together. The areas, again, there's a few areas in terms of systems as they are being put together and built, that I like to look at. It's marketing, front end,
Hmm.
back end, and then media management. And the media management, I would definitely put data in there as well. And so those are really if I kind of were to break down
Sure. Sure.
the different areas. And so under marketing, you've got your social, you've got your CRM, you've got your Bazaar Voice, the sprinklers, those types of services. And there, front end, you've got your content management, any personalization, A/B testing, product syndication, PIMS, digital asset
Hmm.
management as well. Back end, that's really where you see platforms come in pretty strong, especially like a
Yeah.
Shopify or like a BigCommerce,
Hmm.
where you've got everything from your catalog to your user experience to checkout, logistic fulfillment in there.
Hmm.
If you want to do any of your connectivity with Rakuten or Google or Amazon or Alibaba, that's where that happens as well, right? So strong integration there on the back end side of things. And then on the media management side, that's where you have your APIs, any microservices, any automation that you're going to run, tag management, data compliance,
Hmm.
um, campaign analysis, those sorts of things. So, and again, those are each one of those different sections um, is pretty large, and there's a lot to consider inside each
Sure.
one of them. However, there are definitely services that again are made to work together. So as you put together your planning and your strategy for your architecture, it is super important to think about them in those different sections, and then align services, align capabilities to each one of those pieces inside those categories that will work well together. And in the end, once you have a system that's built that way, what you'll find is you kind of forget about it because it all works.
It all works. Yes. Yes.
There's not a fire to be put out every day because this integration failed, or services X, Y, and Z are timing out. You will always have systems that are just built to work together beautifully,
Yeah.
and data's flowing the way it's supposed to. There's no hangups, and that's what the business wants ultimately, right? And I think that's key to remembering why did I build it in the first place, and that's to make money.
Sure.
And
Sure.
for the business, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, if you're not running a business well, if you're not making money, if customers aren't happy, then we on the technology side have failed, and we've not done our job well.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, ensuring that you think about things again from like an ecosphere standpoint, everything inside the bubble has to work well together, and when it does, then the business is happy. Hopefully, customers are happy; they're spending money, and you're able to operate the business,
Sure.
well and
Sure.
smoothly.
So maybe this is when we are discussing product strategy and product management. Maybe it's the right time to. And I know you've done both, right? D2C and B2B environments, right? And I know many of the brands they have like both D2C and B2B, strategies. B2B obviously is like a huge growing, segment within the overall e-commerce space. So from your experience, what are the major, differences or consideration you need to take, into consideration when you've developed, D2C versus B2B, environments?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and again, I got my start in B2B. It's actually a love of mine,
Hmm.
and in the beginning, of e-commerce. I sound old, but the beginning of e-commerce, though, it really was a B2B world and B2C, and then ultimately kind of went to direct to consumer. Actually, kind
Direct
of
to
came
consumer.
a little bit later, right? It's
Yeah,
kind of a funny
yeah,
thing to think about, but direct to consumer wasn't the first real player, right? It
yes.
was B2C, which is again kind of an odd thought. But from a B2B perspective, though, in the beginning, it really was very old school feeling, right? Almost kind of
Mm-hmm.
EDI feeling, where it kind of was
Yes,
emulating EDI. It was emulating sort of these older kind of concepts in the way that businesses are structured.
sure.
But very quickly, though, we discovered that, with the advent of Amazon and with some of these bigger players, UX was becoming an important part of the consumer behavior. And over time, we started hearing, our B2B vendors are also consumers outside of their
Mm-hmm.
job, right? And so they were used to these user experiences on, some of these larger platforms, with Amazon and other companies sort of leading the way in UX. So, we started saying, well, maybe we need to start pulling some of this in, right? And kind of getting away from this a bit more of an archaic sort of approach, and started building in a little slicker UIs, a little, nicer, um, capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
remembering things for them, automatically. What did you buy last month? I mean, so it really kind of started emulating a lot. But the difference, though, still was that B2B has to operate like the B2B relationship, right? So you can't get away from the need, I'm ordering a pallet of something, or I'm ordering many pallets of
Yeah,
things, across multiple SKUs. What's your availability across 100 items that I'm ordering now? So, that's very different. But the UI and the user experience needs to reflect the ease that, you see in the direct to consumer or B2C worlds.
sure.
So, it's fascinating to see how over time B2B has emulated direct to consumer and B2C, and then
Mm-hmm.
also has stayed sort of true to its roots, just out of the necessity of how the relationships work. But kind of tying back our first discussion points along, with teams, the teams are still needed to align to the platforms, right? So from a B2B, B2C, or direct to consumer standpoint, same structure works. The same hybrid approach for product and project management works.
Yeah.
Really, just understanding your customers and what the customers need from a user experience standpoint.
Yeah.
That's where it differs.
Yes, yes. I mean, some of these large platform providers, technology providers, they obviously provide like D2C and B2B capabilities within the same backend, right? And
That's right.
then some of them are not. And B2B is more of a, kind of a approval of a buyer, right? Like a B2B buyer, you have to sign in, get your, someone needs to approve you. And then maybe we need to open like a credit line. It's not just, Stripe or checkout, by credit cards, and
Right.
like maybe quotation models, and they're like various specific things that are more B2B that needs to be taken into consideration. Obviously, in B2B scenarios, they have like a big ERP behind the scenes. Maybe it's an Oracle NetSuite or some others that, more integrations are required, more complex workflows. But yeah, I mean, it's also the opportunity is substantial, and I believe that any D2C has a B2B needs to have a kind of a B2B strategy, right? Like, even Netflix, which is considered, D2C company,
Right.
I don't know if it's 50%, I heard, that of their revenues is, coming from B2B engagements, right, with telcos all around the world.
Oh,
So B2B, I think, is very, very important. It needs to be in a strategy of in the heads of any CMO out there.
oh yeah.
So Jeremy, I feel like we are designing and building a new startup. So let's continue now with one of the most controversial topics, which are a combination of engineering and emotional and art, right? UI UX, right? That's a very challenging topic. And
Yeah.
I guess, you hear demand from engineering side, probably marketing, trying to come up with the best experience for user. And experience is like a very broad word, right, to define what it is. Eventually, people want to feel some emotion with with the brand,
Right.
and the technology needs to support that. So, what are your thoughts in terms of what's working in UI UX these days?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, again, with the introduction of a lot of these platforms, I think they're doing a really, really great job of taking a lot of best practices and infusing the best practices from a UX perspective into the platform. They don't make you use them, they're there.
Hmm.
But you don't have to use them. And like an example of that would be, Shopify has their ability to do markets, and so
Sure.
markets I think is they're using like globally on the back end
Hmm.
of things. But what that allows you to do is to pretty seamlessly spin up, uh, international markets. If you're a U.S. company, let's say, you would like to sell in the U.K. and Sweden and France, right? So
Hmm.
you got your targets there. Um, you can create market very quickly, right? And now you've got pricing that includes duties and VAT. Um, and again, that's from a UX perspective, that's what those markets are expecting, right? So if the price doesn't include all of the duties, all of the other fees, taxation in the price, then
Hmm.
that's unfamiliar to them, right? And so you need to make sure that you understand from a user experience standpoint
Yes.
what your target customer is expecting, and then reflect that. So again, Shopify's already got that built in. Again, you can spin it up quite quickly,
Hmm.
and then and off you go. Curiously enough, even with that same capability, there's an AI component built in where it will do translations for you as well.
Sure.
So you don't have to use that; you can turn it on and off. There's a geolocation, a feature built into it as well, where it knows where you are in the world and can switch that automatically, and
Hmm.
do pop-ups for you. All the things, right? So in years gone by, that would have been several meetings with a lot of people around a table to say, how are we going to deal with this? And then that
Yeah.
would translate into a UI designer putting together lots of varying options of how we're going to approach this. And now today there's a lot of these features and functions sort of they're there, right? They're not turned on by default, but if you would like to activate it, this kind of goes back to the discussion about applications versus native capabilities and
Yeah.
custom development. But
Hmm.
the UI UX capabilities are all there. Now I will say that themes, you have to be definitely careful if you're installing themes on any of these platforms as well. A lot of the themes actually preclude you to using some of these features. So you have to
Yeah.
be very careful, not just going out and buying some random theme
Yes.
and then
It's not only the look and feel, right? Hey, it looks good, nice colors. I mean, functionalities, obviously,
functionality.
journeys. Yeah.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of the functionality is baked into the capabilities of the theme, and if you've used the wrong theme, then you could get yourself in trouble and have to
Yes.
go backwards. But yeah, I think from a UI UX perspective, though, thankfully the platforms are now helping a lot from that perspective.
Okay.
But if you're a large company, if you're an AT&T, you're a Delta, you're someone like that, obviously this discussion using a platform makes no sense, right?
No
Because
sense.
you're
Correct.
gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna have to go out. You're gonna really have to do a lot of digging around what your customers' goals. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to sell? And let's start all the way at the beginning, and then let's make sure that we have systems and UIs that
Hmm.
satisfy all of the different needs, and then sort of go through the normal process of UI mockups, approvals, engineering, architecture, looking at these mockups, building out uh, real working mockups as well to make sure that it satisfies the needs.
Hmm.
And then sometimes there's a bit of a blend, right? So maybe you're a Home Depot. I helped build a very nice configurator for Home Depot one time, right? So Home
Wow.
Depot has the capability of just selling a light bulb to you,
Hmm.
or there's also configurators as well. But once you kind of get into that world, okay, well now you're into custom. You need to make sure that you understand what your customers are needing and designing around that need. And I think that the first inclination is always let's design around what our system can do, and that's always a blinking
Yeah,
blinking red light, right? You should never do that. So
sure.
let's start with what the customers need, and then if our system can't do it, let's figure out why it can't, and then go from there.
So obviously UI UX, I mean, from your experience, and you've developed UI UX as well, and also use custom templates. It's a process that involves marketing, product, right, engineering. I mean, it's like everyone has a thought, right? I mean, how
Right.
do you see that? What is the ideal process, of coming up with first what's required, and second how to implement it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think ultimately, from a user experience evaluation standpoint, you start with wireframes, make sure that you understand what
Mm-hmm.
again what the user's needs are, visual design as well as you kind of move through the process. Circulate the visual designs around to the technical teams, the business teams, and even do some experiments with test groups as well to make sure that the visual
Okay.
designs make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You go to your functional implementation, then where you put it into a test system where it's a sandbox, it's a test environment where you can now implement that. You're making the jump now from the visual design to actual written code,
Mm-hmm.
which can usually be a bit of a lengthy effort depending on the size of the project.
Yeah.
Um, and then once you're happy with that, you can roll it out, um, making sure that there's strong analytics, obviously tied to that as well, into the key points in the process. So if you're doing a configurator, there's lots of key points there. If you're building, uh, something a bit more typical, right? Then you have some more basic milestones. But again, every project is different, so it's hard to uh, talk about specifics. But just from a
Yes.
general perspective, though, ensuring that you have analytics hooked in is critical and key, and then you can refine and go from there.
Yes.
I have had the opportunity to work for like we were saying, Fortune 15 companies. So that's actually a very interesting opportunity when you're looking at UI and UX from that scale, right? So say you own 100 brands now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Do
Wow.
you do
Yeah.
do you start from UI UX from the beginning every time?
Mm-hmm.
Do you create a catalog of UX components? That really was my approach. Where let's say you're responsible for 100 brands. You're going to work through. You're going to replatform a bunch of them, right? Ensuring that you have best practices put in place. You don't start over every time. There's efficiencies, sort of built in there.
Yeah.
You have a well-oiled process that you use, and then that way you're not always starting from zero. You can come in with here's my best practice for UI UX. Here's my best practices for data compliance, and on down the way. And now you're starting with something that's at least halfway baked instead of
Sure.
from zero.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so yeah, over time I've really had to create some pretty detailed um, checkpoints. I guess is the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
For UI UX. So you're starting from the user experience right from the beginning. Where did they come from, and then ultimately what do I want them to do?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So I think we're ready to go to the next step, right? In our new startup. And I think this is time probably to talk about data, right? Data, and specifically, analytics, and obviously AI is very important in these discussions. Um, what do you think is important, from the brand's perspective, and what some of the best practices that you see in terms of implementation and proper use of data, right, for recommendation, personalization?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I mean, there's a few areas from an analytics and data perspective. Analytics specifically, you have obviously customer behavior. What are they doing? What are the key
Hmm.
points? Well, where are they in terms of the traditional funnel? Where are they exiting and having that knowledge? Obviously, pretty critical. And you would think that's, oh well, yeah, that's pretty basic, right? Everybody
Hmm.
does it. Um, I found that everybody knows it, but not everybody does it.
Yeah.
And so, just ensuring that you're actually following through. Do you really know your pain points? Do you really know where customers are leaving you, right?
Hmm.
Like where they're bailing out, and then how to fix that. And I'll give a sort of specific example. So there was a company, and won't name names, but I mean, it's a very large company, right? And they were having an
Hmm.
issue with some patio furniture, and so they were able to use analytics to see on this particular landing page, this patio set of I think it was five like lounge chairs and things it was not doing well, and they expected it to do well, right? So
Hmm.
using analytics, they were able to see exactly where people were bailing out. And then they were actually able to pivot and be pretty creative, duplicate that over, and to create a poolside patio set. And
Wow.
lo and
Okay.
behold, the poolside patio set
Hmm.
did incredibly well.
Wow.
So it was really
It's a
just
nice example. Yeah.
just shifted the wording just a bit,
Shifted.
shifted the photography just a bit, but then it clicked, right? But
Hmm.
if you weren't actively seeking that information out, and that's pretty detailed, right? That's down at the PDP level.
Yeah.
Customers are not converting on this particular product in this page. Why not? Let's look at specifics and then being able to pivot and then have success. That's where analytics is strong, right? It's not just about the aggregate. It's not just about seeing, how many orders I had yesterday, but let's see also where there's problems and where there's areas that we can focus on and fix.
Wow, Jeremy, thanks a lot for all this amazing information and value bombs. How do you see the market or the e-commerce space, in the following years?
Yeah. I think we've talked a lot about transition
Hmm.
over this conversation. And again, I think every year there's bigger and bigger transitions.
Sure, and they
Um,
become faster and faster, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. It is definitely faster. I think that, the advent of AI is definitely a factor. The ability for, Chat GBT to be able to write JavaScript for you based off of,
Hmm.
a sentence, is pretty
Text to
powerful.
code, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I really think that the future of e-commerce, we're going to see where you can actually spin up and create systems pretty quickly, all using AI. You could again text to code, tell it what you need the system to do. It will create an instance for you of a platform. It will then customize with different areas.
Yes.
Of course, the initial won't be perfect, but you can tweak it because you can tell AI, "Hey, by the way, this area over here isn't quite doing what we wanted to do. Let's change it a bit."
Yes.
You can even see that as an evolution. I work with Midjourney a good bit in creating images, and so you can create an image. You're like, well, it's almost right, but it's not just right. Let me try again, and I'll rephrase, and then, hey, well, I'm almost there, and then by the third time around, you're like, I got it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's happening right now, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see there's a lot of larger platforms out there now where they're using AI generated versions of platforms, and some of them
Hmm.
are smaller. Maybe it's just an informational site, but it's 50-60% correct even now. So I can only imagine in 2 3 4 years, overall
Yeah.
platforms will be picking up on this. I know many of the major platforms are baking in. I saw a recent release for Shopify just yesterday where it's AI everywhere, and AI is creating things on the fly for you based off very little information, and it's pretty accurate. So it's becoming quite powerful. So
Yeah.
all that to be said, the future I believe is going to be faster. I think there's going to need to be a shift in, again, staffing, and what does the staff need to be
Sure.
good at. And I don't
Yes.
necessarily see the technical side being super critically important, except for when you're actually having to do this customization where it's very specific.
Very specific, yes. Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, though, the everyday e-commerce needs and capabilities, I think, are going to be largely automated, or you're able to, select what kind of business you are, what kind of products do you sell,
Yes.
upload a few samples, let's see what that looks like. And then even image automation, as well as AI creates images for you. I've played around a good bit where you can upload a silhouette of a piece of apparel, right? Maybe it's a shirt or a dress or a pair of pants, and then you upload that, and then you tell AI, hey, I want this pair of pants on a model standing in a street.
Yep.
I need
like
it to be a little bit
try on. Yeah.
a little bit windy, right? And it creates that image on the fly for you, and it's pretty good. So again, that's today. So I can only imagine in 3, 4, 5 years, that's going to become pretty commonplace.
Yeah. No, the discussions around AI are getting crazier. And I just read an article that this company posted a survey, and they asked when there's going to be a $1 billion valuated company that is operated by one person.
Is that one person in AI?
So when is it? Like 3 years from now? Is it 10 years from now? That's one person operating $1 billion company.
Yeah. I mean, a year ago, I would have said that we were very far away from a lot of the AI that we see today.
Yeah.
And I would have been very wrong, right? The AI has come on so quickly.
It just started, and the results are really amazing.
That's so amazing. Yeah. So amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it's only going to grow and be faster, certainly.
So Jeremy, on a personal note, tell us something about yourself that most of your professional network don't know about you.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to talk about is there was a few years ago, I got into grilling, and I wasn't a chef. I wasn't a griller necessarily, but I bought one of these new pellet grills and smokers, and I fell in love with it. I started grilling everything every day. And I started coming up with like my own spices, and a friend of mine, he is a competitive griller, right? He goes out and competes and does those sort of things. I smoked up some wings. I used my specialized spice, took it over to him, and he was like, Jeremy, where did this come from? Is it delicious? I'm like, oh, well, something I came up with.
Yes,
you've got to sell this. And I was like, yeah, that's not me. I'm not a spice guy. I'm an e-commerce guy.
The spicy e-commerce guy.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. He stayed on me for about a year. Like, you have to sell this. You have to sell this. And so, we partnered up and started a company called Blackbeard Spice Company. It's a pirate-based, spice rub company. And it's a lot of fun. We have fun with the marketing side of things, because it's pretty unlimited in terms of adventure and cooking and spice. We've really grown the company over the last 3.5 years. It's grown a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
We've got several spices out now and retail locations all over the place. So we were even able to get into a resort down in Orlando that was theme spaced, or a pirate theme. So it's again a lot of fun, and came out of nowhere. I would have never thought that would be something I'd do. So, but here it is, and
great,
and loving it.
And we'll add the information in the show notes. Jeremy, thank you so much. Where's the best place for people to find you?
Best place, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. I've got all my information out there, and drop by and say hello.
Perfect. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's it. We've covered a lot. We're ready to start a company.
We're ready to start a company, yes. So let's do that. So Jeremy, thank you so much. It was really, really insightful, informative, interesting. You're given I think a very, very unique perspective of doing things on large scale, in this 2 decades in the business. So
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
for your time. Thank you for your time, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.